Most people will never even see a hospital's sterile processing department, but it's one of the most critical parts of the entire operation. It's this unseen front line where the stakes are just incredibly high. So let's dive in and look at the habits that don't just lead to mistakes, they can actually end a career. I want to tell you a blunt reality about this field, and it's something you really need to hear. Nobody gets fired for one mistake. They get fired for habits. See, it's the patterns, the shortcuts, the little oversights that you repeat day in and day out. Those are the things that quietly destroy careers. And, more importantly, they put patients at serious risk. And that is exactly what we're going to break down today.
So, to really get why these habits even form in the first place, you've got to understand the environment. The SPD is a pressure cooker. Seriously, it's a place where peak performance isn't some goal you're aiming for. It is the absolute baseline, every single shift, no exceptions.
And if you want to know what that pressure looks like in dollars and cents, here it is. Every single minute an operating room is delayed, maybe they're waiting for an instrument, it can cost the hospital over $100. Just think about that. Per minute.
What this means is there is quite literally no room for error. A single misplaced instrument or one tray that isn't ready on time, that's not just a small oops. No, it sets off a whole cascade of delays and costs. This pressure, right here, is the backdrop for everything else we're about to cover.
And that intense pressure can lead directly to our first career-ending habit, insufficient sterilization. This is the absolute cornerstone of the entire department. And when it fails, believe me, the consequences are severe.
The scale of this problem is, well, it's staggering. The U.S. spends nearly $10 billion a year just treating the 5 most common infections people get in hospitals. That's a direct financial hit from failures in hygiene and sterilization. And when you dig into that number, it gets even clearer. A full third of those expensive infections are surgical site infections, meaning they happen right where the surgery took place. This traces the problem directly back to the tools being used in the operating room. So how does this even happen? Well, it's rarely one big dramatic event. It's more like a chain reaction of small oversights. It might start with cleaning that just wasn't thorough enough before sterilization. Then, maybe someone used the wrong cleaning chemicals for a really complex instrument. And underneath it all, often it's just a lack of proper staff training on equipment that's constantly changing. When you're under that much pressure, shortcuts start to look really tempting. And in sterile processing, the most famous or infamous shortcut is something called immediate use steam sterilization, or IUSS. A lot of people used to just call it flashing. And on paper, the theory seems great, right? You save time, you save effort, you save money by quickly sterilizing an instrument right when it's needed. But the reality, it's the exact opposite. This shortcut has been proven to be less effective, which actually increases the risk of infection and, you guessed it, leads to way higher costs down the line. Hey, and don't just take my word for it. The CDC itself explicitly warns against this. They say it's not recommended as a routine method, pointing out there's no protective packaging and the risk of contamination during transport is just too high. The takeaway here is crystal clear. The experts agree this shortcut is absolutely not worth the risk. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about individual habits, but now let's look at a huge systemic problem that feeds all of them, the high turnover trap. This is about the constant cycle of staff leaving and new people coming in, and it creates this massive drain on experience. And to put this into perspective for you, there are only about 60,000 medical equipment preparers in the entire United States. That's it. The labor pool is not vast. So when experienced people walk out the door, they are incredibly difficult to replace. And this creates a perfect storm. So you have constant staff turnover, right? You combine that with surgical instruments that are getting more and more complex every year. On top of that, certification requirements are getting tougher. And the result? New staff are often left without any experienced veterans to mentor them, which is exactly when errors are bound to happen. So, think about it. When you've got a revolving door of undertrained staff and they're handling these highly complex instruments under immense pressure, what do you think is the inevitable result? Yep, incorrect instrument assembly. It's one of the most common errors out there. This is when the wrong tools get put into the wrong surgical trays. And it's a direct consequence of that training and experience gap we were just talking about, the one created by high turnover. And this brings us right back to where we started. Full circle. Every single time a tray is put together incorrectly, it causes delays in the OR, while everyone scrambles to find the right tool. And as we now know, every minute of that delay costs serious money, which just ratchets up the pressure even more on everyone. So we've looked at the habits, we've looked at the systemic pressures. But you know what it all comes down to in the end? One thing: individual accountability. It's about the integrity and the discipline to do the right thing every single time, especially when the pressure is on and you feel like cutting a corner. And this really gets to the core of it all. Ultimately, the difference between a strong, lasting career in this field and a short one, well, it isn't about avoiding one big mistake. It's about the quality of the habits you build, day after day. It's about what you choose to do when you think no one is watching. The only question left is, what are your habits going to say about you?